Welcome back to War Thunder and welcome to the 5th iteration of the pre-closed beta test for ships. And we are here on the map English Shore, which is a nice looking map, and the layout is a little bit different from what I have seen on the dev blog, and I'm glad about this. However, it's again far from being perfect. I will come to this in a moment. The major issue that I have with it is the size. It seems a bit small. On the other hand, it is arcade mode. Maybe this will be an arcade only map. I would be okay with it, but even then some of the other ships might struggle here due to their sheer size. So I think the test was alright because there were no planes at all involved. No planes at all. And I think that is a good thing to focus just on the ships. Overall, we have 4 nations, all of them except Japan, and for each nation exactly 1 ship. And the American is the Elco 80 feet PT 314, and what a nimble ship it is. It is by far the most maneuverable, most agile ship, and it just accelerates like crazy. It is equipped with a 40mm, a 37mm, a 20mm, and 2 dual 12.7mm mountings overall. And you can see you can torpedo beat all day long. That was some that was some of the worst torpedo drops I've ever done in close quarters. This ship is very fun to play, and when you get the jump on somebody you can cripple them pretty hard and you can make your kills. A very fun ship to play. In the current test it had some issues. I will come to this back in a moment. It had nothing to do with the ship itself, and you can see how just I can wreck the enemy. The crew stands in the open, so it's very fragile in this respect. But again, I like the Elco 80 feet PT 314. In previous tests we saw also some Elco boats, and they are just fun to play. However, rather fragile indeed. And at some point it was just better to just simply bail out. The second ship that I want to present you, I tried to run through that as fast as I can go, is the Fairmail D617 632 series, and it's a rank 3 battle rating 5.7 ship. And while it has kind of the size of the Elco, it does not even come close to its speed, maneuverability and utility in this respect. It is equipped with a 57mm 6-pounder 7 CVT quick firing Mark 11A mounting with 140 rounds, and I think the problem is how that works. It seemed a little bit bugged because it had to do with the ammo selection. I'm quite sure it will get fixed soon. The next mounting is a dual 20mm in the back. Also we have twin dual 12.7mm Vickers machine guns, and also twin 7.7 Vickers machine guns. Furthermore, we have 2 533mm Mark 8 torpedoes and also 2 Mark 7 depth charges. Overall, I think the only ship that you could take on reliable in a 1 versus 1 was, funnily enough, the Elco. But then it was again who had the jump on the other one first and who mowed down the deck crew of the other first. I don't know if the torpedoes were acting as ammo racks, but it kind of was the thing that this thing was highly fragile, and against the Soviet and especially the German monstrosity, which was completely imbalanced, this thing just had no chance. I mean, it would be a fine ship in its own, but against something like the MBK or the AFD1, it just couldn't really bring up the firepower, and I think to a certain degree it was down to the how the 75mm or the 57mm, I'm sorry about this, worked. It had no high explosive filler and also no HE. It was kind of weird. It was just a solid slug launcher, and that doesn't help too much. As you can see, this AFD1 is kind of unimpressed by my attempts to attack it. So you can... It was weird. so far the British ships that we all saw did not really convince me. I think there we have to think about a bit of balancing in this respect. There you can see how I take on another Wehrmahl, and I'm doing overall nice damage to it. But you can see the reload on the 75mm, which seems to have a clip, is rather long indeed, and it just takes time up until the point you can take down even yourself. So I think let's move on to the Soviet one after I got killed quickly. Well, not, yeah, there we go. The third ship that I want to present you is the Soviet MBK PR-186, which is a rank 4 battle rating 6.0 ship, and this is a heavy hitter indeed, with two 85mm CC-53 cannons, one mounted in the back, one mounted in the rear, in shape of T-34-85 turrets. They can dish out a lot of punishment. In this respect, they are quite similar to the MZ-1. But very slow it is indeed. The acceleration is not very nice when you compare it to the previous two ships. And while it can take damage, you could easily take out the turret crew by shooting below the turrets. So the armor was not really there. Furthermore, we have a 37mm 70K cannon with 1,000 rounds, and also two twin 12.7mm disc machine guns with 400 rounds. 200 rounds for the 85mm cannons seem to be a lot, but we will see in a moment that, or when we compare the championship, that is not a lot. This ship is extremely highly effective when facing the Alco and the Wehrmahl. They just have no chance. When you have the first initial opening salvo there, when you load the high explosive shell, then you can just decimate them hard. In a duel against the AFD-1, however, you struggle, let's put it that way. The problem is, again, you can choose if you load HE shells or APHE shells. And with all previous iterations, we can't switch ammunition in the battle. And I was here saved by an Alco PT that just rushed in and torpedoed the AFD-1 at point blank range. So in this respect, thank you. However, I was so crippled and just, you know, it didn't do me any good. And there you can see, you just can switch at the beginning of the battle. The problem is, or the thing with the, I'll have to talk a little bit about this right now. The HE shells are perfectly fine to deal with all other opponents except the AFD-1. But you don't have enough backup weapons, you know, to deal with those ships if you switch to the APHE. The APHE is not very great if you use it against the Alco and the Wehrmahl, because it doesn't, you know, splash. And you know, there is not enough armor to activate the fuse. If the fuse would be more sensitive, I guess APHE would be alright, but you know, those are literally the tank shells from the T-34-85 series. Overall, APHE is not too bad because you can shoot through the entire length of a ship and do enough spalling damage to the crew and so on. So that is not too bad. So when somebody is bow tanking, you might really have a good, decent chance. The problem is, you don't have enough backups weapons to then mow down the deck crew and so on. And you can see this is how APHE works when it doesn't go off. It does damage, but it's not good. And then there is the weird angling or firing arc of the rear turret. You can see how the shell goes right through the entire length of the ship. So that is a good thing in this respect. A sad thing is that you can't switch between them. And this guy beached himself. And now he takes ferocious beating at my hands. Again, the problem with the entire test was that you really couldn't deliver the knockout blow. And again, the 37mm, it's just one, and it doesn't have the rate of fire. So it was kind of hard to make this work. I think this ship looks amazing, you know, 2 T-34-85 turrets. That looks more like a proper ship, you know, that a lot of people want in this respect. And it was nice to see this ship. On the other hand, you could see the drawbacks of having a big ship with slow acceleration and bad maneuverability. And this is the first taste of why the maps are probably not that well suited for the other ships. I mean, the Fairmile is okayish on this map, and also the Alco PT boat, you know, could maneuver around a lot. But this ship struggled a little bit. And I just bailed out because, again, I was crippled too much, I was in a bad situation, and it takes literally minutes to unbeach yourself, reverse, and then accelerate again. And some of the positions were really nasty indeed in terms of when you get out of the spawn. And I think that's another problem. The spawns where they are. I mean, it's okay that in front of the spawn is an island that prevents you from getting shot at immediately, and you have a little bit of spawn protection. On the other hand, it takes a long time up until you get around, and there are two exits for the ships on each side, and so those are torpedo magnets. So overall, this ship would be the king of the battlefield, or rather the seas of battle, I guess, whatever you want to call it, if it wouldn't be for the other ship that, you know, lets you think about switching to APHE. And the last ship that I want to present you, the fourth ship, is the German Artilleriefährprahm Typ D1, or in short, the AFD-1. Kind of a political joke here, because this is absolutely the dominator on the battlefield in terms of raw firepower and protection, survivability, and complete imbalance. You know, I like German things, to be honest, but a ship that is equipped like an MZ-1, but armored, you know, that is kind of unfair when you shoot at something like a Fairmile or a PT boat. I mean, look at the beating when I hit them, that is. This ship is equipped with two 88mm SKC-35s with 2,000 rounds of ammunition. And you just have HE, but it works perfectly fine against those lightly armored ships, as you can see. Then we also have a 37mm SKC-30 mounting with 1,000 rounds, and this is a single shot 37mm, so not like on the Alco PT boat or even the Russian one, the MBK, which are magazine fed. This one is a single shot variant. Doesn't give you any advantages though. But furthermore, we have two 20mm MGC-38 cannons with 16,000 rounds, quadruple mountings, that is, one in the front and one in the back, so two Wirbelwinds basically, and they are amazing. Furthermore, we have one 20mm MGC-38 mounting in the back and four depth charges, WBD. One thing to the, or a few things about the 88s. They seem to have better firing angles than on the MZ-1. They just can fire HE, so you don't have APHE option like in the last test. And they have a much higher rate of fire than the MBK, the Russian equivalent. This one was the first battle that I played in this test overall. It was the first battle with this ship at all, and I did not think that it needs further introduction. I had then battles with up to 17 kills. This thing put into the right position can lock down an entire spawn zone of the enemy. This thing is ridiculous. It might have to do with its armor. There is 100 millimeters of concrete armor around the ammo racks and the citadel, so you can't ammo rack it. Furthermore, there is 20 millimeters of Wotan Hard waterline protection, and the turrets are protected decently. In this situation, the enemy has actually managed to take out one of the 88s. While costing me practically half of my firepower, it's still enough. And I think it was this ship that made all the other ship kind of obsolete. The only other ship that could take you down in a direct head-on engagement was the Russian one, the MBK. But then if you got the jump on it, you could crumple it with a single salvo. This is an absurd amount of protection, survivability and firepower, which is completely imbalanced. It's completely balanced, and it ruined the test for me for the Alco PT boat and also the Fairmile. I mean, the Fairmile suffered the most because one single salvo could put you down when you were sailing around with the Fairmile. I think it is also very, very slow and very, very unmaneuverable in comparison to the other ships. And look at this. Look at this guy. He still has spawn protection. The second he goes out of it... Ouch. That hurt. So, I mean, the combination of the good firing arcs and the rate of fire of the 88s and the twin or the Wirbelwind mountings practically just put down the enemy so fast, so drastically. When you had your broadside protection, when you had your broadside mounted there, and they couldn't fire torpedoes to you because of the islands, then you just were the boss on the battlefield. There was no chance for the enemy to take on you. So, I mean, in this respect, I completely overextended. I was shot up by multiple opponents. I sank a lot of them. This was not the best representation of what this thing could do. But I also was hit numerous times by twin torpedoes in the front of the ship, and I was still afloat and combat capable. This thing is ridiculous. So people complain about ships having no armor. I was one of them. Now we have armor, and I think, oh Jesus, those poor bastards without armor. I mean, you know, look at this. I'm heavily crippled, and still I have enough firepower to take on any opponent. Any. And here you can see a little bit of the drawback of this map design, and that was the islands together with the artificial aiming assistant. Look at this fast takedown. This is the Russian ship with which also has a little bit of armor. And there you can see that the 37 has a rather slow rate of fire. And look at this, I can mow them down, I can cripple them so heavy, and they have no chance of really putting me down. And I'm just mowing into the general direction with those two Wirbelwinds and so on. And then I switch fire to the Fairmile and just watch the beating this guy takes. And he's down already. It was a kill assist granted, but still. But this thing is completely imbalanced. So everybody that likes German superiority, look no further. This thing is just outstandingly overpowered. No, I have no words for this. In fact, in this iteration, I was actually glad about the Russians having twin 85mm guns, but they were also not useful enough to take me down effectively. It was not just this one battle that I played with it. But again, I think the map design was not in this ship's favor. It was just simply too slow. And yeah, there is not much that I have to say. What is my opinion about this test? I didn't like it. When we look at the previous iterations, the basic idea was actually what I asked for. A new map, yes. Just direct ship-on-ship combat, yes. No objective that you couldn't fulfill, so all the capture zones were in the middle of the maps. and so on. So in this respect it was good. But especially the second map that we had available, I think it was named Scandinavia, if I remember correctly. We had this map in the first test, I guess. So yeah, overall I think the test showed how imbalanced it is. There were multiple occasions where multiple ships shot at this behemoth of a battle beast and couldn't take it down, and in return they did not get killed, but you know, if you switch your fire after you crippled one, you have like 5 enemies that are dead in the water. They can't kill you, you can't kill them, and it's an endless battering. The situation where you really racked up the kills is when some Alco PT boats or Fairmals tried to charge you. And even when you received torpedo hits, as I mentioned it, you had to receive 2 torpedoes, one in the bow section, one in the rear section, to get effectively sunk. I got multiple hits of 2, 3, 4 torpedoes in the bow that couldn't take me down, and even my front guns were still in action. So wow, we have here a game-breaking ship already, and it's German. So yeah, and the balancing factor is a Russian ship. The irony. Okay, jokes aside, the AFD-1 is also one of the more popular ships. I did the testing yesterday, so when the video goes up. And my impressions are, I like the idea of big ships, but then to put them on small maps is not a good idea. And yeah, it was fine that we didn't see any aircraft. I would have loved to see something like this on the convoy map and just wrecking the enemy. And I think that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comment section if you think the same about especially the German ship or the Russian ship. And what were your impressions? Again, graphically it looks absolutely stunning. And I hope for even more night battles on this map, as it was kind of advertised by Gaijin with the lighthouse tower. Anyway, give this video a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other on the waves of War Thunder.